Hello and welcome to another Ammach Project Archives episode. In this one, we're still on the interview series where you will meet Kelvin Curnow, who joined us from the Cornwall, Devon area. In this interview, he relays experiences of his contact with androgynous beings, where he was invited on board ship, how his father, who worked for the RAF as a radar operator, frequently saw huge speeds of craft going across. And sometimes when the pilots came back and returned, they were in complete denial because they didn't want to lose their careers. He understood, but he also saw the evidence. Enjoy this interview with Kelvin Curnow. It's just under an hour. Some very interesting things to share with you, and I think you might enjoy it.
And welcome to another Ammach interview. We're here on March 19th, and welcome to an interview with Kelvin Curnow. Everything started for you very, very young, your contact. An overview of the earliest memory you have.
I think that the first memory I have of actually having telepathic contact with higher evolved beings was when I was 11 years old, and I was living in Cornwall at the time. I was in my bed. I just done my school homework. I turned the light out, and I had a feeling that I had to go to the window and that there was something that I would see. I felt it so strongly that I had to get out of the bed and go to the window. I looked up at the night sky. It was a cloudless sky, very cold, frosty night, stars, no cloud at all. I'm sort of standing there looking up towards the plough, Ursa Major. I'm sort of waiting, anticipating something would happen. And this was about 11 o'clock at night.
And was this a brand new experience for you? Is this the first time this had happened?
It was the first time that I experienced this, yes. I sort of, for 3 consecutive nights, I had a telepathic experience with 2 silvery white objects that zigzagged erratically within what I call the box area of the plough, and they were very, very erratic, and they made a point of staying within the 4 points of what I call the saucepan area, plough, box area. And something said to me that they would be there again the following night at about the same time. And I knew it was a very, very odd but very, very special experience that I was experiencing. And I was aware that this was a telepathic communication that I was receiving.
And so what were they actually saying? What were you receiving? Was it an external voice, or was it your own voice, as if it was your own voice?
No, it was external. It just came into my mind, consciousness.
I mean, did you recognize it as another voice?
Yes, absolutely. But very, very quietly spoken. And the second night I'm standing there again, and again these 2 crafts, I'm waiting for them to appear, and within 2 or 3 minutes they reappear again on the second night.
So you're seeing them now, and is there any other information they're giving you, or are they just giving you a show at the moment?
Give me a little show. And on the last and third night, they said to me that they would be there again. So the third night I waited, and yes, they were there again, as they said they but differently on the third night, after they zigzagged around erratically within this box area of the plough, they actually became closer, and they actually joined together as one bright white light and became one unit. Now, I was only 11 years old at the time, but I'd have special parents. My mother was very psychic. She was very clairvoyant. She had many numerous out of this world experiences.
And did she talk to you about those?
Yes, openly. Okay. She was a nurse. She worked night shift many times, and she had many beautiful experiences with people that were passing over.
And what about the extraterrestrial side? Did she have any links with that? No. It was all kind of spiritual and paranormal and psychic.
Yes. She had, before she died fatally in a car accident back in 1991, before that she had 2 near-death experiences. One when she was giving birth to myself. Another one was when she actually was having a hysterectomy when she was about 40 years old at a hospital in Plymouth, Devon. Again, she passed over, and she was told to go back to Earth because her work was not finished, because she was very much a healer as well.
It seems that experiences seem to bring in some energy that makes it quite difficult for Earth mums to bring you out.
Yeah, either that, or looking at it from a lighter point of view, the extraterrestrial souls incarnate here in human appearance, when it's time for them to be born physically on this planet, they're having second thoughts and they don't want to be born, and they think, my God, what am I doing here? I want to go back where I came from.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't prove it, but apparently in my previous incarnation, before I was incarnate here in my current Earth lifetime, I was androgynous, neither male or female. And again, I can't prove this.
Okay, well, let's go back to you when you're 11 years old. You've had 3 days experience, or 3 nights experience. You've had the telepathic interaction.
Yes.
And I take it you feel very comfortable with that. There's no anxiety or upset.
It was a very nice, relaxed experience.
And so after the 3 days, how did your experiences then begin to develop or evolve?
I mentioned it to my father.
What was his response?
Well, it was quite positive, because after the Second World War, my father was called up to do his 3 years national service in the RAF. And he was a radar operator, and he witnessed seeing on radar screen on many occasions so-called UFO craft, I prefer to call them celestial craft, that have actually penetrated United Kingdom airspace.
Was he based in the UK?
Yes, he was. Yeah, RAF bases all over the UK. He witnessed craft traveling thousands of miles per hour. This is back in the 1950s. He was obviously sworn to the Official Secrets Act at the time.
Did he tell you that?
He did when I was older. So,
and was that treated as a national security aspect?
He had signed, obviously, being in the RAF, he was obligated to the Official Secrets Act.
And what happened with that information? Was that treated seriously?
Oh, it's all been covered up by the government, as they always do. He personally believed that they were not from this world. They were extraterrestrial, interdimensional, whatever.
And did he have any interaction himself?
No, not that I know. I did remember him saying to me that on occasion, when he witnessed on radar UFO craft entering UK airspace, that when RAF planes were sent up, that pilots, when they were briefed, or debriefed rather, when they came back down again, that they quite often used to deny seeing anything up there, even though it was witnessed on radar, because they didn't want to ruin their careers, because many RAF pilots go into working for commercial airlines, just British Airways or...
Yeah, so it could ruin your job chances.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. So he kept stum about that. Yeah. Did he mention it to your mum? Did things like that? No. So your dad was very positive about your experiences. What about other family members? Do you have a brother? Did he see anything?
I do have a brother, but with great respect to my brother, because I love him very much. We're very much like chalk and cheese. However, it just come to mind that my father did witness an experience with me once down in Cornwall, above Rame Head. What
sort of age would you be at that time then, Kelvin?
I was probably about 30 years old. We both witnessed a white object come down above Rame Head, which is in Loo Bay in Cornwall. Apparently it's where the St Germain line runs through and cuts right through that part of Cornwall, right through Wales, up through the Isle of Arran in Scotland, up through, I believe, the Western Hebrides, over the North Pole. That's the St Germain line, which intersects with the...
So the Michael line there.
The Michael line and the Mary line, which run to each other, which go heading east, crossing the Germain line through all the stone circles that go up through up to Glastonbury, Avebury.
Yeah. So a real sort of power place right there.
There are 3 main planetary grid lines that run through Cornwall.
Going back now, I just want to take you back again to your childhood. So we're still at 11 years old. Just want to move on to some different communication, perhaps, because they've now sort of set a base with you, so you're comfortable with seeing at least the craft. So tell us about the first time you actually had an interaction yourself with them.
I was 12 years old. And I was in the school playground. This is a place called Saltash in Cornwall, where I saw this silvery, sort of greyish craft above the roof of a house, because the school playground was elevated above most of the town.
What sort of shape would that be?
It was circular. I knew who lived in that house. It was a lady called at the time Marilyn Preston, who then became Marilyn Evans when her first husband died. She remarried, but she was a lovely lady. She healed animals, channeled healing for animals, and also healed people with very, very serious illnesses. And I got to know her when I was probably about 12 years old, not long before that experience, seeing the craft above the roof of her house through a playground. I got to know her because my cat had cancer. The vet wanted to put him to sleep, so I walked about half a mile with the cat in a box, couple box, took him up to see this lady, And after 3 visits, the cancer had gone. It had completely disappeared.
Wow, how wonderful.
But this craft was right above the roof of her house. Now, when I was a child and I was about 12 years old, I had no one to talk to about this stuff. My parents were always too busy. They were always working. I had no one to share it with. So I had lots of friends at school. But
Did any of those see the craft at the time?
No, in fact, good point to raise that. I actually asked some of the children in the playground if they could see something that was odd and strange above the house just across about a quarter of a mile away from the school. None of them could see anything sight to see that. It happens many times.
So I've certainly heard of that. So tell us about the meeting then.
There was an experience that I had when I was 15 years old when I had a meeting with 3 androgynous, very beautiful beings. And I must give full credit to a friend of mine I've not seen for many years. She went to live in Brittany in France, but Trish Lucas was a friend of mine that actually painted these paintings for me. She did it in universal service for me because there's a very interesting story. I asked Trish to do these paintings for me. I didn't have much money at the time, but she said, well, she would do the paintings for me providing I just paid for the materials and the canvas. But she spent many hours painting them. It costs a lot of money if I asked a professional artist to do.
So is that a very good representation then?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're 15, you're having a meeting.
This experience that I had was actually in bed at the time. We'd moved house by then to the other side of the town of Saltash and near Carkeel. I don't know to this day whether I actually was in a trance or actually having an out-of-body experience, or maybe on an etheric level. But I'm very consciously aware that I do remember walking down the stairs of my parents' house and walking through the kitchen, through the back of the house. I mean, I can see it now. It's there. Visually, it's there. It's like a recording. And I walked into the field behind the house, and there were 3 or 4 horses there at the top end of the field. And this beautiful craft was there. I would estimate probably 30 feet, 10 meters in diameter, a beautiful white luminous glow around it. And there were 3 androgynous beings standing by the craft, and they communicated with me telepathically. And likewise, I did the same, naturally.
So this is your first face-to-face meeting?
Yes.
And did you feel excited, or were you nervous or anxious? Or?
It was like seeing, well, let's put it this way. I felt very much that I knew them, like a visiting family perhaps, yeah. I felt so much love coming from them. I must actually make a point in saying that I was not abducted. I've always thought of abduction as being going on board craft against your free will, but I was invited to go on board the craft. At this event, they invited me to go on board the craft.
And did you?
I did, yeah.
Wow. Tell us more about it.
I wasn't scared. I felt so much love coming from them, and I felt very safe with them. Didn't feel threatened at all. I went on board the craft. I remember one being standing across opposite me on the craft. In the center of the craft, there were these huge crystals.
Like quartz crystals?
Yes, absolutely. I believe this was their power source.
Were they clear quartz crystals?
No, I don't think they were clear. I think they were colourful, actually. I had one being to my left and one being to my right, standing by my right shoulder.
And just give us a sense of sort of dimension. So what sort of height do you think they would have been in relation to you? Well,
taking into account I was only 15, but I guess they were probably about my height as I am now, so about 5'11", 6 feet tall. So they're just a little bit taller than what I was. I estimate about 6 feet tall. Long blonde hair, blue eyes, long white robe.
Were there any emblems or distinctions about their clothing?
Don't remember anything like that, no.
What do you see? The crystals and...
I have no recollection of being taken anywhere. However, there must have been a reason why I went on board the craft. Apparently, I was told a few years back now, but my experience with someone that I trust a lot, who's had similar experiences, that I may have been downloaded information to be released later in my life. But at the time, when I was 15 years old, I was not obviously mature enough to deal with that information and that knowledge.
And do you think that's correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, it wasn't until I was about in my early 30s let's see, it would have been a bit longer than that, actually. It was the same day that the Princess of Wales had died in the car crash in Paris.
So August 97, I think.
97.
Yeah.
August 31st, 97, I think it was. So it would have been 97, 15 years ago. I was at a computer. For about 2 hours, all this information started coming through. It's like channeling or something, or it was coming through my thought consciousness, if that makes any sense. And I was just...
You were writing it out?
This was future possible timeline scenarios of what's going to happen on the Earth, or what could possibly happen on the Earth, because nothing is set in stone, of events, major world events within my lifetime. And for obvious reasons, I kept a lot of this to myself. Again, I had no one to share this with.
Do you have a sense of how long you were on the craft?
No. No, I actually remember getting on the craft with the 3 androgynous beings. I remember getting off the craft and then waking up in my bed and going to school the following morning. Something that never happened, but I remembered it. And
did that change your life?
It's a life-changing experience. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I felt that when I was going through the education system, that people, the children in my classroom, were all being sort of conditioned into one thought of, like, I guess, mind control, perhaps. I always, since I had that experience, I always felt that I thought outside the box. Witnesses, they could not see what I was seeing. I've had this experience where I live in Plymouth, where I've seen craft very close to my my home, the apartment where I'm living, because I'm quite close to a ley line there, and I've seen craft on numerous occasions outside my window. I've taken digital photographs of craft in my area. I'm sure my neighbours must think I'm not quite all there, but I do see things that people can't normally see on a third dimensional level of consciousness.
Because you're out there pointing your camera toward the sky and they don't see anything and you see something. Is that the thing of it?
Correct. All they're probably seeing is just a blank sky with a few stars, but I'm seeing ships, craft, etc.
Or have you had regular telepathic communication throughout the years?
All through my lifetime. In fact, when the pictures were done by Trish Lucas, that did them for me all those years ago, when they were finished, she phoned me. I was living at a place called Plaidy at the time, just outside Looe in Cornwall, which incidentally is actually an interdimensional portal. She phoned me up and said, "Kelvin, I've finished the paintings for you." Because I was about to go on a trip to India. I was invited to go to India to give talks around India.
On this subject?
Yes. I was invited to go by a couple of swamis that I knew at the time. So within 20 minutes of receiving Trish's phone call, I said, okay, I'm on my way down to the harbour, I'll be down shortly. I left my home at Plaidy, just outside Looe. Something said to me to look up, and I looked up and there was a white disc, a white circular craft, which was probably no more than about 500 feet above my head, and it was following me all the way down the cliff path, which was about a 10-minute walk down to the harbour in Looe. And it accompanied me, moving very, very slowly. And when I got down to the harbour, to the cottage where Trish was staying with a friend of ours called Sheila Johns at the time, who sadly passed over, I said, "Trish, quickly, now is your chance." She always wanted to see one of these craft. I said, "Now is your chance." And she came out of the house, and so did Sheila. The 3 of us watched this craft go out
so
towards
they could
the
see
sea.
it.
Both of them saw it. The 3 of us actually saw the craft going out towards Looe Island, going out towards out to sea, basically. And for me, that was that tremendous experience for me, not for seeing the craft, but having someone to actually physically experience the sighting with me. Because so many times in my life, I've been with people standing right next to me, and they cannot see what I can see on another level of consciousness.
Because you also mentioned the isolation. I know you've said you've been quite alone and haven't had anybody to speak with about these experiences, and this is very common as well. So, and also that there was some harassment about your experiences.
Whenever I've been trying to bring this up with people openly, it's been ridiculed. So I don't like confrontation, so I tend to back off. Almost 20 years ago, when I decided to go public, from my own personal safety, really, I guess.
Was that the impulse behind that?
Yeah, I
action?
felt that it still wasn't safe to come out publicly, openly. Initially, I just gave talks to people in private homes, people that of like-minded mind who had maybe similar experiences. It was nice to share our experiences with each other, because we were very much in a very, very tiny, small minority. But it wasn't until, I would say, within the last 10 years, and certainly latterly in the last 5 years, that I've actually gone out more publicly when I've given talks on my experiences.
Just going back to India, how did your talks go down in India?
They were very well received.
And did you? Were there a lot of people attending?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. People from all walks of life. Yeah. And most importantly, from all different kinds of religious backgrounds. Yeah. Muslim, Hindu, Christian, Buddhist. Wonderful. And they all agreed to a degree what I was saying.
As you were saying before, there's got to be a reason for this connection.
I think that the reason why we have so much conflict with religions around the world through the ages is because we are all one, basically. And I think all the religions actually very much all have something good to say. Every single religion has something good to say about the universe, about whether it's reincarnation, having past lives experiences, etc. I believe that there's always been a massive cover-up by world governments, a global elite, especially in the secret societies, and many people that have spoken out or gone public in my field have had, sadly, conspiracies against them. And I must admit that...
you mean sort of defamatory stories about them?
Absolutely, yeah. There may be some truth in those stories, perhaps, but quite often there isn't. I think that governments have been trying to cover up the UFO thing for a very, very long time, because if people in various religions around the world wake up to the idea that we are not alone, and that we also have interaction with extraterrestrial beings.
So, I mean, your feeling about your experiences is generally, as I understand it, positive, in the positive realm.
Yeah.
Have you had then any interaction which has been explanatory as to these others who perhaps have not been on the positive plane, about what that is, what's going on, and perhaps how the balance may be tipping toward more positive experience for humanity as a whole?
I have never had any negative experiences with extraterrestrial beings. However, there was one occasion in Cornwall where I was walking along the cliff one night and a red orb was coming across the sea towards me. I had a very bad feeling about it. It was moving quite fast. It was obviously being intelligently controlled. So I ran to the hedge, because I just had a bad feeling about the craft. I knew it was extraterrestrial. I felt that it wasn't friendly. It went right over me. I do believe that there have been negative ETs that have been visiting this planet for many, many thousands and thousands of years, going right beyond the pyramids of Egypt and the Mayan pyramids, going way back, and that this planet has been seeded by extraterrestrial races. I've always believed on a higher intuitive level that the different skin colors on this planet are all different extraterrestrial seedings. Darwin's theory of evolution about black people being different to white people and etc. is all to do with the Earth doing pole shifts and having different climatic changes, etc. I do not go along with that at all.
Well, again,
it's ridiculous.
If we also just take for a moment the Lloyd Pye material of the Star Child skull, he is really proving unequivocally that the Star Child skull, as it's misnomered and named, is extraterrestrial. And there is nothing that science can do about it, because this is now fact and forensic evidence. Yeah. So, we are beginning to see more evidence, physical evidence on the planet of this seeding, and he is very much into what known as the intervention theory, which is indeed this genetic tinkering manipulation of our DNA. So we've kind of got to 15. So going into early adulthood.
16. Had an experience, close encounter experience with a witness this time. A friend of mine called Vincent. This was at Derriford, on the outskirts of Plymouth in Devon. I was on the back of a motorcycle. Vincent had just had his new motorcycle bought on his 16th birthday by his dad, and we went out for a ride on the bike, and we were just going down the driveway of the house where they used to live, which was quite a long driveway. To my left, I saw this beautiful craft appear, moving across very, very slowly. I would estimate no more than probably about 300 feet above ground. Estimated diameter probably about 150 feet in diameter.
And so your friend saw this as well, is that correct?
He did, yes.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, we're on the motorcycle here. It was very, very close. It went right over us. When I initially saw this, I tapped him on the shoulder and he stopped the bike, and we looked to the left, and we saw this craft coming very, very slowly towards us. We did not feel threatened by it.
Was he okay? He wasn't?
Yeah, he was very cool about it. He was fine. You'll see that there's two rows of lights. There's one row going clockwise, and another row of lights going interclockwise, the inside of the row of lights. And it looked like a carousel, different lights going around, yellow, blue, going around.
Yeah, so creating the electromagnetic field probably with those counter-rotational.
I think it's centrifugal force, if that's what it's called. And it had two searchlight beams coming down from the craft, and we didn't go into the beams. It just went past us, and then it stopped above us, to my right and to Vincent's right, when we were standing there by the motorcycle, and it tipped up. So it went from like a estimated speed of around about 25 miles an hour to hitting speed of light when it left us. It had a red light underneath the undercarriage here. But yeah, that was a huge craft, about 150 feet in diameter. When it tipped up and left us, it looked like a distant star in a split second.
It's been left there a bit dazed.
Yeah.
I'd actually forgotten to ask Kelvin about the interior of the craft that he'd been invited onto as a youngster. So I'm going to pick up that and over to Kelvin.
I felt that inside the craft, all I could really see was just white light, all inside the interior of the craft. About 10 meters, 33 feet in diameter.
So you're just aware of being with these lovely beings who are emanating only positive and loving energy.
Absolutely, yeah. And feeling that I knew them and that they knew me.
Right.
Understanding. I remember actually saying goodbye to them telepathically. I remember getting off the craft. So I remember going on the craft. I remember being on the craft. I don't remember any steps.
Now, we were also talking in our break about starseeds. And this kind of leads nicely on, because I've no doubt that you are one. Tell me what your feelings are about starseeds and their role at this time on the planet Earth.
So I believe personally that a lot of the souls that are incarnate here on Earth at this time, who have experiences such as myself since early childhood, especially paranormal experiences with interdimensional beings, extra-dimensional beings as well, in other words, beings not of this Earth, that we are incarnate from other star systems, and we chose to be born here to be of service, of universal service, to assist in raising human consciousness on Gaia, the planet Earth. Apparently I'm from the Pleiades, previous incarnation, and apparently I was a fifth dimensional androgynous being.
Do you know if you had a specific role?
I know this is true, but I can't go into it now. A very private experience that I had. I was told this through someone who's very well known in the scientific field as well as psychology, and out of respect for her, as she's quite well known worldwide, I'd rather not go into the finite details.
But you have that awareness of being
yes,
a Pleiadian.
that I'm different, that I'm not entirely human. Although I appear to be human in appearance, like many starseeds here, we are different. We do not think as you would perceive to be normal human beings. Personally, I think on a higher level. That
spiritual awareness, the dimensionality.
Absolutely. I've had experiences with ghosts since childhood. I had someone sit on my bed just recently in the middle of the night. I felt their weight on the right-hand side of my bed. Whoever was in my room that night, the entity or whatever it was, the spirit, it was definitely friend.
Have you met yourself many of these other starseeds, would you say?
I would say not enough of them. I've only started meeting them maybe in the last, say, 10 years, but very, very few of them.
Do you think things are speeding up?
Yes. We all have freedom of choice. This is a freedom of choice planet. It's a third dimensional freedom of choice planet. There must never be any outside interference to interfere with human evolution. However, the only way that the extraterrestrials could actually raise human consciousness was to request volunteer souls from other star systems to be born here. Because going back to the time of the atomic bomb, which was released over Nagasaki and also in Hiroshima in Japan during the Second World War, when those two bombs were released over Japan, they sent out shockwaves right through not only our solar system but our galaxy, which affected other worlds in different parallel dimensions and possibly even parallel universes, because there are many universes as well as different dimensions of reality. Because the highly evolved extraterrestrials that have been coming here for many thousands of years since they seeded this planet with different races, because they were so concerned of atomic energy being used for negative purposes rather than positive purposes, requested for volunteers from other star systems to come here to raise. I think the primary objective was to try and assist in raising human consciousness, to say that, you know, what human beings were doing with atomic energy was not right, and that we were in danger of annihilating not only this entire planet with souls to be born on this planet, to mingle with other human beings, and the only way you can do that is to look human.
If we're in danger of World War III, let's say, do you think that extreme action might happen?
No. Personally, I do not think that there'll be a war with Iran. This is only my own personal opinion.
But do you base it on information or awareness of what the extraterrestrial or other dimensional intelligence, what do you think their role is?
Right, I believe the purpose of souls that have incarnated here is to prepare human beings not only for a higher level of consciousness, where we can stop all these wars, that bring more peace to this planet and have more respect for each other. Because my philosophy is I treat everyone the same. I don't care what skin color they are, I don't care what religion they are, to me they're just a human being. If everyone had that philosophy, then we really truly could build a kingdom of heaven on this planet.
So let's go to, then you were mentioning at some point climate change and those issues, and how do you see again that impacting our relationship with the others that are interfacing with us now?
You cannot rule out that some of the so-called earthquakes, etc. In Japan recently we had that terrible tsunami.
Do you think any of those are human-induced?
Yes, I was just about to move on to that. Some of the natural earth changes, as prophesied by the Hopi and the Mayan Indians, were actually, they were meant to be very, very gentle, as gentle as possible. The more people that are awake and aware of what's going on in the world, moving up to a higher level of consciousness, the more gentle these earth changes will be. But unfortunately, we have the dark side people who work for the dark side cabals in the secret societies that actually feel they have a right to actually depopulate the planet, and therefore, yes, they are inducing man-made earthquake activities such as what we saw in Haiti, also in New Zealand, in Chile, and more recently in Japan. It's a universal law that there must not be any outside interference, as I mentioned earlier on, that the souls incarnate here had to come from the outside to work from the inside to break the system down.
But there's clearly a relationship.
Yeah.
An insider's relationship then. So
the extraterrestrials that are here right now, in the ships that are around the Earth right now, NASA knows about them. Most of the world's major governments know about these crafts that are there. Many of them cannot be seen on third dimensional space. As I mentioned, there was two, I believe, aircraft, whether they were military fuel tankers or airliners or whatever, going across Germany, I believe. They were intercepted by apparently a mothership that was up to 2 miles long.
Right, and this is this year?
Yeah.
Was the ship clearing up the chemtrails, neutralising what?
Yes, I believe they're actually.
Is that your understanding?
Yeah. They were invited to come here. We have to do this work as human beings. We have to clear up our own mess, basically. We caused this mess on this planet, the environmental destruction that's going on at the moment, the wars that are going on. The wars, of course, we all know, are funded by the banking institutions. And incidentally, I was told also when I was on board the craft when I was 15 that I will witness many things within my lifetime around about the year 2011, 2012 that would involve massive climate change, where there would be millions of people crossing international borders in search of food and water. I was also told of the collapse of apartheid in South Africa. I was also told of the collapse of the Berlin Wall, the collapse of the Soviet bloc, but the big one for me was the possible. I say possible because nothing is set in stone. There are different timeline scenarios, but they can be changed if we raise human consciousness. The big one for me was the possible revolution or civil war within the United States within my lifetime. And I think that is very, very close right now. The way I see the United States has had its constitution ripped apart by the current government of George Bush family. I think that people are just having their freedoms just taken away from them.
We're doing quite well with that in the UK with all the surveillance we have.
If the American public do not wake up quickly enough, we could see a very bloody revolution or civil war within the United States. If the United States goes down, then there's not much hope for the rest of us, because then all the other Western so-called free democracies will also fall like dominoes as well. We have just gone through the age of 2,000 years of the age of Pisces, which was male energy, hence all the wars that we've had on this planet. We're about to enter the age of Aquarius, which is female energy. So we've had the Kali Yuga, and now we're moving into Sat Yuga. The way I see it, things are moving in a positive way. I believe, and in fact I feel very much so, that there's more light now on the planet than there has ever been. It's a time of a new beginning and a new Earth birthing into the fifth dimensional vibratory frequency. I've been aware of this for about 20 years. Many of the souls that hopefully will move on to the other Earth that's been prepared. I don't know a great deal about it, but I am aware of it, that there is some kind of other fifth dimensional planet Earth that we're birthing into. I also know for a fact that, although I can't prove it, that as the Earth is ascending from the third dimensional to the fifth dimensional vibration, that more and more people worldwide will see these spacecraft or so-called UFO activity increase, as more and more are opening up their third eye. We're actually entering their airspace. I think that the majority of the chiefs of staff at the Pentagon have good intentions for the American people, and they want to bring back the Constitution for the Republic of the United States. One of the things that I was told when I was 15 on board this craft, which I obviously downloaded later on in life when I was more mature, a total collapse of the current global financial system.
Right.
Free energy here, if this energy was not so suppressed. It's a monetary system that is, to my own opinion, is corrupt right from the very, very top. We've seen, I think, well over 3,000 bankers resign just in the last 2 or 3 months worldwide. And I think this is very encouraging, because I believe that according to Ben Fulford, that they're going to be introducing a much more ethical financial system that is not so corrupt. Because all this funding of the wars, let's face it, I mean, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, who do they benefit? The way I see it, they just benefit the banks. I'm aware about 20 years ago, I was aware that there was an emergency cabinet meeting called by Margaret Thatcher, who was then Prime Minister. It was regarding extraterrestrial or interdimensional craft entering UK airspace, as well as crop circles manifesting southern England, especially in particular in the Wiltshire and Hampshire area. I was quite concerned that military aircraft have been sent up to intercept these craft in UK airspace, because these craft are actually, usually they're very, very friendly. They have the best of intentions. It's a shame that the RAF or other foreign air forces are aggressive towards these craft, because they don't come in here. I say most of them, because not all of them have good intentions, but most of them come here with the best of intentions, and now there are so many of them. The ones are actually staying away from Earth now. If they had negative intentions, I'm sure they would have invaded us a long time ago. At the time, I arranged a meeting with a gentleman called Nick Pope, Secretariat General at the Ministry of Defence in White.
And what was actually your intention?
To convey a message to Nick Pope that almost all of the craft that are coming into UK airspace, or any other national airspace, international airspace for that matter, worldwide, has the best of intentions and is not a threat to the human race. In fact, they're here to protect us from other negative ETs, if the truth be known. I asked him to convey this to the powers that be in the British government.
And what was his response?
He listened to what we had to say, and we had a very long meeting. It was in a bar underground in Trafalgar Square, and we must have been with him probably at least 4, maybe 5 hours. There was a two-way conversation going on. The reason why I set up this meeting was to convey to the British government that craft that are coming here have the best of intentions. Impression that the British government at the time, when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister, was concerned with activity in UK airspace, and I just want to convey to the government that through Nick Pope that the craft that are coming in have positive intention.
And what did he say he was going to do with that information?
He didn't say what he would do. I don't think it was Jesus Christ's intention when he was born on this earth to actually start a new religion, i.e. known as Christianity. Yep. Jesus was sent here, or volunteered maybe to come here to raise human consciousness.
Do you think he was purely human?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I'll tell you a little story. 13 years old, I was in a religious knowledge class, which was half an hour every week. The teacher asked the classroom, what was the Star of Bethlehem? And I put my hand up and I said, it was a spaceship, miss. And she said, well, why was it a spaceship then? I said, because the 3 kings followed it across the night sky, across the Sinai Desert for 3 nights. I said, and stars don't move, miss. So it had to be an artificial object that the 3 kings were following across the sky for 3 nights. But she still gave me 100 lines. Star of Bethlehem was not a spaceship. I had to write that 100 times for homework. The Star of Bethlehem was not a spaceship.
You were also telling us a bit earlier that near where you live, there is a little island off Cornwall, and I forget what it's called, but Joseph of Arimathea is purported to have taken his nephew there.
Right, when Jesus' wealthy uncle Joseph of Arimathea, who was a trader, went to Cornwall to trade, I suppose, minerals, perhaps gold, silver, copper, tin, just like the Romans did in Cornwall. Apparently Jesus was actually left on Looe Island, otherwise known as St. George's Island in Cornwall, before he went on to Glastonbury when he was a boy. Legendary that this actually happened, of course. It's just like St. Michael's Mount in Cornwall, again legendary, that apparently Archangel Michael was seen blowing trumpets with angels in the sky above St. Michael's Mount in Mounts Bay in Cornwall by some Cornish fishermen, hence the reason why St. Michael's Mount became a holy place, and then so about 400 years after the 8th century a monastery was built there, just like in Mont Saint-Michel in Normandy. Got the Michael line going up through Cornwall there, and also the Mary line, which goes up through the stone circles right through to Glastonbury, Avebury, etc. Main line cuts right through southeast Cornwall up through Scotland over the North Pole. Incidentally, I've had numerous experiences with craft in Looe Bay in Cornwall. I had a home there for 12 years.
Actually having bases in the sea.
I never saw any craft go into the sea, but I saw craft coming in to our dimension, start flashing from nowhere. Clear night sky, like they were interdimensional. And I was convinced that there was an interdimensional portal in Looe Bay in Cornwall. To me, they were physical. The lights, the craft.
The lights, the craft, but actually the entrance to the portal, or that kind of...
Like a ring around it? I know that there's a portal between Ramehead and Looe Island. It's probably about seven, maybe 8 miles wide.
And have you ever noticed any particular military activity around that neck of the woods?
Not really, no.
Okay.
I mean, there is a naval base nearby in Plymouth. One night I counted 11 craft coming in to third dimensional airspace.
Would there be any of the telepathic communication that you've had before?
Yes. I was woken up about 2 a.m. in the middle of the night when I went to sleep most of the time, because I lived right on top of a cliff overlooking the ocean, I would leave the curtains open at night, and quite often I would leave the window open so I could hear the sea. I woke up and something said to me to go to the window, like when I had an experience when I was 11 years old. I went to the window. There was maybe 2 or 3 craft just coming in. They start blinking and they jump. You know, if it's a helicopter or an airplane, you get a sound. These are quite close. They were no more than about half a mile offshore from the beach, about 400 feet below the cliffs. Well, eventually I counted 11 of them all together, and they just started blinking all over the bay, one after the other. Usually whitish, silvery colour.
Does this indicate anything for you?
A lot of the sightings worldwide have generally been on energy points. Energy points as in like acupuncture points. You have the Saint Germain line cutting through Looe Bay, near Ramehead, going north, up through Wales and over Scotland and over the North Pole. A lot of the stone circles worldwide, be it in England or in Brittany, you will find a lot of so-called UFO activity where they're actually repairing the energy grid lines. They're like acupuncture points within the Earth.
So you think that they're here now to repair Gaia's grid?
Yeah,
okay.
They're here to be of universal. So I've gone to many stone circles in my lifetime, all over the United Kingdom, from Cornwall to Scotland. On many occasions when I've been doing meditation work in these circles, I have had interaction with these craft telepathically.
Right. Do you think they're mainly Pleiadian craft?
No. There's beings here from the Pleiades, from Arcturus, from Andromeda. There are so many. The only way I can equate to it being is that on Earth we have, it's what I call the secret part of the secret government. It's the United Nations.
It's like the opposite, the positive of United Nations, except the United Star Nations.
Yeah, the Federation of Planets.
Right.
I am aware that the programs that were brought out by, like Star Trek, which was brought out by the late Gene Roddenberry, this was all channeled information. Gene Roddenberry actually had an experience, I can't remember if it was in the California or in the Nevada desert, where he actually went on board a craft and he was told to actually start the Star Trek series to as a way of raising awareness to people that we really are not the only ones in this universe, and other universes of reality that are on our own. We actually, the Earth is actually a school. We're a third-dimensional planet. It's not a planet that many of the star beings that are incarnate here are used to. The density is very, very dense. A lot of the star people that are here, human incarnate, come from star systems where there's no war, there's no monetary system, respect for one another. See, the Earth on the spiritual aspect is at the bottom rung of the ladder. It's a place where there are souls here from good and bad, what you may call ET. Incarnate, who, how can I put it? If you have an issue with somebody here in this lifetime, this third-dimensional lifetime, and you don't get on well with that person, then it's quite possible that you may have some kind of karmic debt to pay with that person from previous incarnation.
And you see it relating also to the ET faction, no different?
No different. I think that the world's media is controlled by very, very few people, that the only way to really find out any real information is through the World Wide Web, the internet, which was incidentally brought here by extraterrestrials as well.
Tell me about that.
I believe it was actually channeled through. When scientists here on Earth have inventions, like Tesla, for instance.
Well, he definitely wasn't of this planet.
They're working on another level of consciousness. Yeah.
I mean, have you been told that, or is that just a deduction from...
According to my knowledge, initially it was used by the American military, and then it was actually then used to the American university system, and then it went worldwide. But because it was used by the American military, it was given to them. There have been bases on this planet for quite a few decades now of ETs that have been interacting with governments on Earth, and in exchange for technologies they were given bases here. Most of the bases are actually underground, many in mountainous areas worldwide. You may ask why they were in mountainous areas, because, well, mountains actually, they have a lot of crystal energy. I love crystals. I think they give out a very positive energy.
So it's a bit like the tall whites that Charles Hall met when he was out in Indian Springs for a couple of years in the 60s, doing his weather recording and that kind of thing. So clearly they wouldn't have been there, the tall whites, without some kind of agreement. So
I was going through a point in my life where I felt I was being attacked by dark energies trying to keep me down, and it was affecting me. It was like being taken over by maybe another entity, perhaps, or whatever.
Like psychic attack.
Maybe, perhaps a psychic attack. But I have witnessed experience where I actually had an entity walking towards me. I could not see the entity, but I could see the grass move in front of me. The grass was about maybe 2 feet high, wild grass, walking towards me.
And that didn't feel good?
I didn't get a very good vibe off it.
And what did you do?
I try not to show any fear, and I said, if you are not of the light, please do not come any closer. And I just very, very gradually and calmly sat up off the bench that I was sitting on at the time. I was on a cliff in Cornwall. It was the night of a full moon, and I'd been to a meditation. I wasn't sure what to make of this entity. I think we're all going through a cleansing period at this stage.
That to you was quite pivotal in that you stood your ground.
I deliberately would not, I just refused to show any fear. I just got up and I didn't see it move backward.
So
it just stood there in front of me. It was invisible. It was obviously there because I saw the grass about 2 feet high moving towards me. It was just like when I got up, I did not feel threatened by it, and I just left very calmly and continued. I must admit that I've been very blessed in this incarnation, that I have perfect health. I believe that if people meditate more often than they do, this can also for your well-being.
So have you got any other thoughts or tips before we draw to a close?
Don't worry about the future. The planet is going through a massive change as a living entity within itself. A lot of the human beings on this planet, most of them will be shifting into that dimensional reality once the Earth shifts into the fifth dimension. Don't worry about the doom and gloom stuff about 2012. It's not going to happen. It's all. I see a very, very bright, beautiful future ahead of us. We have a lot to look forward to. I see a future without any war and lots of love and peace on the planet. The majority of people on this planet, the so-called 99%, have had enough of all the wars, all the killing, and the banking institutions controlling our lives, basically. This was not meant to be a slave planet. We should be living here in peace and harmony, with free will. And also, I think that we're all on this planet to grow spiritually, of course, because this is all part of our evolvement before we move on to other levels of dimensional realities. Yeah. Bearing in mind that the Earth is the bottom rung of the ladder, you've got to start somewhere, and none of us are perfect. Everyone is equal as far as the prime creator is concerned. Some of us are just more evolved than others, with different levels of each other than other people. I'm planning to do some more talks later this year. I'm planning a trip to India later this year.
Oh, are you?
Visit various gurukulams and ashrams around.
Right, well, Kelvin Curnow, thank you very much for being here.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for watching. This was another Ammach interview, and we were with Kelvin Curnow. Bye for now.